Going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here to react live to week 16 of the 2019 NFL season. You see this eye right here? This is what you get when you think the Cowboys are going to win. When you count on the Cowboys, this is what happens. The Cowboys disappoint huge. We'll get into that later on. What's going on, bottom line viewers? I'm sitting here and we're going to talk about the entirety of week 16 from the games on Saturday to the games today. Of course, not the game tomorrow. I'll give you a prediction for the Monday Night Football game between the Packers and the Vikings as we wrap up the video. But make sure if you're here live that you do get in the comment section. But I do want to go to one thing first. But before we even get into any of the games, all right? Let's take a look at something because I really want to show you something. So let's take a look at this. All right. This is what I want to show you. You see this right here? This is 162 points for me. That's 51 points for Kevin Durkant, all right? I'm winning by 111 points, all right? Look at this. He still has Aaron Jones. He still has Devontae Adams. He has a Vikings defense, Dan Bailey. He would need a miracle to come back. A miracle, Kevin Durkant. A miracle. All right, I just want to get that out of the way before we get into the entirety of the video. But there you go. I'm killing Kevin Durkant right now. All right. But anyways, Kevin Durkant technically did win the league because I'm not going to let myself win my own league. On the bottom line view, I let you guys win the league. So there you go. It's happy to win the league, but not actually win the league. So that's fun. Anyways, guys, before I do get into these games, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button if you haven't already. If you're joining me live or if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you do Gronk spike the like button. Likes just make sure that it gets on the homepage for some other people so other people are finding the channel. Just makes the popularity of the video go up and makes other people find my content. So I'd appreciate it if you do Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for NFL content basically every single day of the week, especially as we get going towards the NFL playoffs in 2020. We're wrapping up 2020. I am planning on doing some end of the decade sort of lists and that sort of thing going on the channel this week, as well as a preview of week 17 and of course the playoffs. So make sure you do subscribe to the Bottom Line View. And comment your opinion, as always. I want to hear from you guys. As I always say, my opinion is not the only one that matters. I am not right 100% of the time. Nobody is right 100% of the time. So I like to bounce it off other people, see what their opinion is, and see who is right. That's what I like to see. And it also helps me get my opinion right. So make sure you do comment your opinion, whether that's live or after the fact. Get in that comment section and let's get active. So the first game I do want to talk about here is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chicago Bears. So we just watched that game. I mean, really, this was more of a game where it was on in the background probably for a lot of people, and nobody was really paying super close attention to it, as I certainly wasn't paying super close attention to it. The Chiefs do win 26-3 and basically a blowout. I said to my dad, we were watching it, and I was just like, this game was over before it even started. I mean, it just felt like nothing happened in this game. Like, nothing that I learned happened in this game. It's just exactly what I knew about the Bears happened. Exactly what I knew about the Chiefs happened. Let's just quickly go over it. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, big game once again. Not super impressive from the stats, but this was a pretty easy game, I would say, for Patrick Mahomes. The Bears defense didn't really test him much. They didn't really try and get after him much with any sort of creativity on their defensive side of the ball. They weren't really bringing blitzes or anything. They were basically sitting back and saying, we're just going to play zone coverage, and we're going to give up the short pass. And, Patrick Mahomes, he was fine doing that because he's not only a quarterback that's just looking for the big play, he understands, along with Andy Reid, the concept of the offense is just to move the ball. And, he did a good job. He was efficient, 23 for 33, 251, 2 touchdowns. And on the ground, they did not have Shady McCoy in this game. I do want to talk a little bit about that. So Shady McCoy did not play. I do want to say that they are saving him for the playoffs. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. I feel like they've been saving him just to be their lead back in the playoffs, because I still do feel like Shady does have that extra gear in the playoffs, more so than a Damian Williams or than a Spencer Ware, just in my opinion. But Damian Williams did get a majority of the carries in this game, 16 carries, 65 yards. He had 3 catches, 27 yards, and a touchdown. So a pretty good game for him, especially in the second half when they were utilizing him the most. Travis Kelce had a big game, mostly in the first half, 8 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. And, Travis Kelce is a big part of what they do offensively. They weren't really letting Tyreek Hill have much. I mean, he still got his with 5 catches, 72 yards. But that's what Tyreek Hill does for you, right? So if Tyreek Hill wasn't on the Chiefs, this team wouldn't be able to just dink and dunk versus zone coverage, because not as many people would be afraid of the bomb over the top. But with Tyreek Hill in there, it makes Travis Kelce that much more dangerous as a player. And it just reaffirmed, okay, the Chiefs offense, it's really good. Patrick Mahomes is really good. We know Andy Reid can call plays. And it really was looking at, okay, how the Chiefs defense, are they going to continue to string together these victories? And of course they did. I mean, they only allowed 3 points. They had quite a few sacks, 3 sacks in this game at the very least, I believe. Tyrann Mathieu, another good game for him, leading the team in tackles. Chris Jones is a monster getting in the backfield. I mean, their corners look really good. They're playing more man-to-man coverage. Spagnuolo's doing a good job. He's sending some creative blitzes at times, keeping Trubisky on his toes, throwing inaccurate passes. As for the Bears, it's not really much to say. I mean, it's basically what we've seen from the Bears all year. They did have some injuries on defense that didn't help them. Offensively, they've just been a complete mess. I think a lot of it has been their offensive line play. I think last year they were drastically better on the offensive line, and that allowed them to run the ball a little bit better last year. That allowed Mitch Trubisky to buy a little bit more time in the scramble drill, because Trubisky's not a good traditional drop back passer. But when you do give him time to just kind of play a little bit of street ball, Mitch Trubisky is good at that type of game. And obviously the Chiefs weren't allowing that. They were getting after him, sending extra rushers. And then Allen Robinson, he's okay, but like Collinsworth was bringing up, he can't really separate from good corners in the league. He can't really burn you with speed, so you're not really worried about that. And the rest of the weapons, I mean, Anthony Miller's okay. I feel like the Bears need to go out there and they need to get a big-time tight end. They need to get a big-time receiver. They need to get something, because if they're sticking with Trubisky, it's not going to work the way that they formed around him. And I'm not saying Trubisky's good or anything like that, but I am saying, just like Collinsworth was saying during the broadcast, I think he could be okay if you do give him a supporting cast that is built for this offense. I really feel like Matt Nagy's offense, with the talent that he has, it really isn't utilized to the best ability in matching talent to the scheme. I feel like they could have done a better job. When you compare the two schemes, right, Chiefs and Bears, very similar schemes, different type of playmakers. It doesn't really match up to me. So that's my thoughts on that game. Just another good performance from the Chiefs defense, which you like to see going into the playoffs. And then Bears, more of the same. All right, moving on. I will get to your comments. I'll try and go a couple of games at a time, and then I'll get to the comments, kind of like a picks video. I haven't done one of these videos all year, but I'm thinking of doing it throughout the playoffs. And I know during the playoffs, it would be better to do an individual game recap or reaction, which I will try to do. But we'll see. Sometimes the schedule will not work out that way, but we'll have to see. So the next game was the opening game of the weekend. It was the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the Houston Texans. This game was very interesting because the Bucks actually they were the better team for a lot of the game. If you watch this game, you saw that the Bucks, their defense played very well versus the Texans offense, an offense that I thought was going to light them up. The Texans defense played pretty well overall. I mean, they turned the football over, which is going to happen versus Jameis Winston. How much of it is Winston? How much of it is Bradley Roby and the guy intercepting the pass and the defense forcing the mistake, because Winston's just going to throw 1 or 2 picks a game. You just know that's going to happen. But I do want to say about Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, I've said for a couple weeks now, he's my favorite player to watch in the entire NFL. The guy is so exciting. There's nothing like it. I mean, this guy, you do not want to play him if you're trying to make the playoffs. Like the Texans are trying to make the playoffs. They're trying to secure that AFC South. And Winston scared them because one play, he can throw a dart across the field to his no-name receiver. And then the next play, he can throw you a pick six. He is an absolute wild card. He's so entertaining. He's so exciting. And he makes for good, entertaining football. I do want to defend Jameis Winston in 2 things, okay? A lot of people get on Jameis Winston because he throws a lot of interceptions. He turns the ball over. Perfectly fine. I do want to let you know, though, Bruce Arians' offense, specifically this year with Winston, Bruce Arians' offense, he doesn't care if you throw interceptions because Bruce Arians' offense pushes the ball down the field more than any other offense in the league. They're looking for 6 on every play. I mean, that's why Godwin and Evans and all these guys are on the team, and that's why they create big plays, because they're always looking for the shot. And there's not many quarterbacks in the league that can actually execute that type of offense. It takes a very big-armed quarterback that can make all the throws to be able to do that. That's why Arians, when he's had his success, he's had guys like Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer. All of them have in common a really big arm, tough, big quarterbacks who can take hits like Jameis, maybe extend the play for a little bit. But they also threw a lot of interceptions. It just happened. Now, not as many as Winston, because I will say Winston is not Luck. Winston is not Ben. Winston is more in the Carson Palmer territory to me. But the thing about Winston is, I think this is the quarterback for them going forward. I know it's a big question in the NFL right now. I don't think you can name 15 quarterbacks that are more talented than Jameis Winston right now. Yes, he is not a good game manager, but you also have to look at it. This defense, in terms of their pass defense on Tampa Bay, it's arguably the worst in the league, which is a big sore spot for the Texans, which I want to talk about because I was not impressed with Deshaun Watson. I was not impressed with the Texans' offense, and let's get into that. So, big question going into this game was I was expecting, maybe the Bucs to go on the scoreboard and score some points, but even, without Evans and without Godwin, I was expecting the Texans to win by 2 scores. So going in this game, I did not expect Deshaun Watson to have 19 for 32, 184 yards and an interception. This guy did not play well. He was sacked 5 times. There was a ton of pressure on him all day long. He was inaccurate. He was not setting his feet in the pocket or on, moving away from the pressure, then setting his feet. On the run, he wasn't accurate. To be completely honest, I know Winston threw how many interceptions? Let's see. He threw 4 picks. I would argue Winston played better than Watson. Watson was bad. He was really bad in this game, and it was kind of shocking. A 62 passer rating. They couldn't run the ball, of course, because the Bucs are the best run defense in the league. But what does Bill O'Brien continue to do? He continues to run the ball right up the gut on first down. That's not going to work versus the best run defense in the league. Then you're setting up 2nd and long. You're setting up 3rd and long potentially. And that is putting your quarterback and your receivers in a bad spot. Then they lose Will Fuller. That takes away the deep threat. That takes away a part of the plan, like I talked about with Tyreek Hill. Defenses can play you a little bit differently. And as great as DeAndre Hopkins is, I've always said this, he's more of a jump ball kind of receiver. He's not really necessarily going to run past you like he's Randy Moss. He's just going to outbody you, more like a Michael Thomas. So with Will Fuller, that's why Will Fuller makes their offense that much better, because his speed scares defenses. Really, the receivers didn't show up. Hopkins didn't really show up in this game. He had 5 catches for 23. Stills had 5 for 57. That was the best on the day. But their defense, that was impressive. They were able to turn the football over. But I'm saying if Winston, doesn't throw 4 picks, maybe they don't threaten the Texans and score 20 points, but maybe they don't, give them an opportunity to win this game. So it's an interesting thing with Winston. Again, the back and forth, it's just what you prefer to me. For Arians, I think he prefers the guy that's going to take the chance. And I think for other coaches and fans, they want a guy that's going to protect the ball, but not necessarily be able to make all the throws. For me, personally, I would rather have the guy that can make the throws, that I know he can win any game. But, I would rather have that guy than the guy that I know can't make the throws, and he's just simply not that talented. I'd rather have the talented guy that maybe throws the ball to the other team every once in a while. So that's just me personally. But that's my thoughts on the game. I was not really impressed with Houston. Going in the playoffs, though, they have a chance because next week the Chiefs play the Chargers. We've seen that the Chargers, they lost this week, I believe, to the Raiders. But we've seen that the Chargers, they play the Chiefs very well. So if the Chargers can somehow knock off the Chiefs, that would allow the Texans with a win versus Tennessee to become the 3 seed. Now, if the Texans win, they're the 4 seed. Regardless, I believe the Texans are the 4 seed. They've clinched the AFC South. It's more the Titans fighting for their playoff opportunity as the 6 seed in that game, more so than anything else. And it might be wise to almost sit Watson in this game because we know how much he gets beat up. So we'll have to see what Bill O'Brien decides there. But I do think they'll be competing to try and get that 3 seed depending on what happens in the Chiefs game. I don't think the Chiefs will lose. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that the Chargers have given them a challenge in the past. So that's interesting there for the 3 and the 4 seed in the AFC. The next game is, of course, the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. This was a huge game in the AFC and in the AFC East. This game was excellent, as was the Tampa Bay-Houston game, but in different ways. I think this was a much better played game. That game was entertaining because of the weird circumstances of the quarterback play and the turnovers and all of that. But this game was really well played. It felt like a playoff game. The fans in New England were really into it. 24-17 New England, as you know, most likely. This was a big game. I said it a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I was looking at this game in particular to see the judgment of the Patriots offense. How good is the Patriots offense? How good can it be going into the playoffs? That was the big question for me to be answered. And to me, this was the best game the Patriots offense played all year long, which is amazing if you're a Patriots fan. And you should be excited going into the playoffs. This totally changed my perspective and my mind on the potential of the Patriots going into the playoffs. Because before this, it was defense, special teams, turnovers, or bust. In this game, the Patriots offense dominated. You look at the way that they played this game. They had the second most yards on Buffalo all season, the most yards by a team that beat the Bills in a game. Tom Brady had the best passer rating versus the Bills secondary all year long of any quarterback. They ran the ball for well over 100 yards. Sony Michel looked good. Rex Burkhead had a great game. N'Keal Harry was involved. Edelman missed an entire quarter, and they were still efficient. So for me, this was all about seeing the Patriots offense, and it looked really good. Going through some of the stats, Brady, 26 for 33, 271, a touchdown, 111 rating. Then you look at the running game. Michel for 96, 21 rushes. Rex Burkhead, 5 for 20 with that big touchdown where he broke a couple tackles, and he had 4 catches for 77. White had 4 catches for 24, as well as 5 yards on the ground. Harry had 21 yards on the ground. So they were really running the ball. They ran the ball a ton. Obviously, we know the Bills, they're weaker versus the run than the pass. But looking at it, I was really impressed with the way that the Patriots, they schemed. I think Josh McDaniels deserves a lot of credit. They used Landon Roberts at fullback a lot more, and they were just power football. The offensive line played very well in both facets of the game, whether that was pass blocking for Brady or that was run blocking up front and just dominating a really good defensive line and defense. And really, Sean McDermott, a great defensive coach, who I said is coach of the year, and I still believe that. He had no answers for McDaniels in this game. It was kind of a McDaniels revenge game as McDermott's getting the best of him over the course of their rivalry there. But McDaniels definitely showed out, and the players made plays, and they looked like they had chemistry, and they were clicking. And, I mean, minus a fumble and a 4th-and-1 stop by the Bills, which was an impressive tackle, but a poor block by Mohamed Sanu, they could have easily had over 30 points versus arguably the second or third best defense in the entire NFL. So, to me, if you're a Patriots fan, you're very excited about this. For the Bills, I think what you're excited about is on the flip side, their offense. They weren't really the same as the Patriots in terms of getting long drives and, making play after play after play. The Bills were kind of more big plays, which is what you want to see from a guy like Josh Allen. Allen's been very inefficient, ineffective on deep passes this year. He was absolutely money in this game versus New England. New England challenged them to make plays down the field, and they executed. They scored, I would say they scored 14 offensive points, and they almost scored at the end of the game. They got a field goal based off the fumble return from, I think it was Micah Hyde. But, I mean, Allen played well in certain moments. He also made some bad throws, but that's going to happen versus the Patriots defense. They're very good versus the pass, especially. They couldn't really run the ball. I think the Patriots tried to take that away mostly and forced Allen to pass the ball down the field. But that ball to Knox before halftime, that ball to Brown for the touchdown was impressive. He just made a lot of really nice throws. He made them under pressure. He made a lot of really nice physical plays like the 4th-and-1 quarterback sneak. So if you're looking at this, I think you can say, hey, the Bills' offense might have been a little bit of shaky going into the playoffs. But now that you see them versus what I think is the best defense in the league, and they're able to go out there and at least put up some big plays that you haven't really seen versus this defense all year, I think that speaks to Josh Allen going forward, getting better, this offense getting better, and maybe their prospects going into the playoffs. I do believe the Bills showed that no matter where they play, they will challenge the team they play in the first round, and if they make it past the first round, I think they could challenge a Baltimore in the divisional round in a tough game. I think Buffalo, they're not going down without a fight. Even though they lost this game, they did show me a lot in terms of their offense. Their defense, I think, will adjust. They'll get better. You have to wonder, though, is this sort of taking from New England? Will other teams steal from them and try to attack similar things that New England attacked? So a lot of questions there, but also a lot of answers. I think this game, of any game this week, answered a lot of questions going into the playoffs of what was kind of boiling in my mind for both teams that are playoff relevant. So that was a huge game. That was a very fascinating game to me. All right, let's get to the comments right now before I get into the last game on Saturday night, which was San Fran and the Rams. So let's get to the comments. Let's see. So I don't have all the comments loaded, so if you want to re-say your comment, then go ahead. Deshaun did say, do you see a rematch of Chiefs versus Patriots in the AFC Championship game? I think if somehow the Chiefs would lose next week and the Texans would win, then it could happen. But I don't see it just based on the seedings of the teams. Because if the Chiefs end up the 3 and the Patriots end up the 2, then it's most likely going to be Chiefs, Pats in the second round of the AFC playoffs and not in the AFC Championship game. But you could argue that those teams definitely have a chance to both go to the AFC Championship game. I think a lot of people will have the Ravens in there. But I could easily see the Chiefs and Patriots, if it were to work out that the Chiefs go to Baltimore and New England plays, let's say, the Texans or the Bills. I think we could very well see the Patriots and the Chiefs, but it would definitely depend on the seeding. So it depends on the way that you look at it there. Both teams look good, though, at the right time, which is a good thing. Let's continue. Big game from Danny Dimes and Saquon, says Mr. Singh, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Edward says, one Pennsylvania, I often have... what? Okay. I don't even know what he's saying. I often have enough to go against the second stringer. Sad day to be a Steeler fan, and Ben not coming back next year, so what to do? Ben's not coming back? Who said Ben's not coming back? Is Ben retiring? That's news to me. I didn't know that. Let me know if that's the case. I didn't know that. But I do think the Steelers, if they get Ben back at full health, which is not 100% going to happen, like you said, they could be an AFC contender based on that defense. I really like some of their pieces on offense, and I think Tomlin's done a decent job with this team. So I would say the Steelers are a contender next year if Ben can get back to Ben form, but that's not an easy ask. If they're without a quarterback, though, they're an easy slump candidate because it's tough for this defense to continue to win games by itself almost, as we saw today, even versus a Jets team. Because if you're continuing to have to win by 6 or under or 3 or under in the case of the Steelers, it's not likely going to happen very often. You're bound to lose games and go on a losing streak. Trivia says Chandler Jones for Defensive Player of the Year. This guy gets no respect. He had a massive game today. I'll get to that a little bit when we talk about the Seahawks and the Cardinals. But he's a beast. And I think he should definitely be on the ballot for a lot of people's all-decade team. I don't think he's going to end up making it. But I think if you actually look at the numbers, he must be up there for sacks. I don't know the exact number, but he must be in the top 3 for sacks. He's been an outstanding pass rusher. He's led the league in sacks, I think, at least once, maybe twice. He's become a better player since leaving New England. He's one of the players that I think, one of the only players that I think has actually gotten better since leaving the Patriots, which maybe the Patriots should have paid him, maybe not. Maybe they couldn't have afforded other guys. Who knows? But he's an excellent player and a beast. It kind of sucks that he's on the Cardinals, but the Cardinals should get good real soon, which I'll talk about. Eagles, the shortest bandwagon ever. They get on and they left in 6 months, says Turtle. He says that Michael Thomas would be MVP frontrunner if Lamar didn't exist. Sipping his tea there, as I am. Trivia says, unfortunately, I live 30 minutes from Philly, so I'm stuck with idiot fans around here. He's not a fan of the Eagles fans, I guess. Trevor says, yo, what's up, Trevor? Jeremy is in the chat as well. He says, Adam Gase had his signature win. What else? Hey, Eric says, imagine thinking the Cowboys are not going to let you down. Yeah. Coach says, fire Garrett. What else we have here? Trevor says he needs 4 points from Mike Boone tomorrow to win his league. You're going to get those 4 points, Trevor. Michael says, you're the only one left, Mitch. What do you mean by that? I'm the only one left. The only one left in fantasy? Yeah, I am. I lost Godwin and Ridley, I believe, in that league. Did I not? I think I did. I could be wrong, but I think I did. Trevor calls Trubisky a bottom 10 starter. A bunch of Dak sucks. Trevor says if you put Wentz and Peterson on the Cowboys, they're easily a top 3 team. I would agree with that. I don't even know if you have to switch Wentz and Dak, to be honest. I think Wentz is better than Dak, don't get me wrong. But I will say that I think it's the coaching. We'll get to that game later on. I'm saving it kind of for the main event, but geez, it's mostly coaching. It's 96% coaching in that game. Kevin Durcan says the Raiders are making the playoffs. Turtle says the Bucks versus the Ravens would be the most exciting Super Bowl with Evans and Godwin. Winston and Lamar doing their things. Good or bad, it would be incredible. I did see the Saints game today. Or at least most of it. Not every play, but most of it. Ultra says, sorry I was late for y'all. Was on a flight from Georgia to LA to see the family for the holidays. Thanks, Ultra, for joining despite being away, I believe. Are you in LA? Yeah, you're in LA, so hope LA is nice right now. Probably is. Lucky guy. Atlanta fan says, when was the last time the Dolphins even won a playoff game? Must be the 90s. I don't remember. When was the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game? Because it hasn't been in the last like 10 years. I want to say it's the 90s. Maybe Marino. Philly, let's go, says D-Jack will be back healthy. Isn't he out for the entire year? Or am I wrong there? Trevor says the Patriots offense is average at best. However, the playoff factor is always a thing for them. I'm always going to believe there's more there to come in January until it's proven otherwise. I think that's the right approach to take, or else you risk looking like a dummy. Trevor says that the Titans are going to win versus the Texans. Philly says, I know my Birds have a big battle, but Wentz can do a run. I don't know, bro. Like, maybe one game, maybe win one game. You never know with Saquon next week, though, bro. They got to get past Saquon. And I'm not calling them the Giants. They got to get past Saquon. Honorable mention to Daniel Jones. But they got to get past Saquon. Cincinnati, I watched that game today. I don't even know what I watched. That was like the weirdest. I don't even know how they came back. That was insane. Tyler Eifert just jumped up and mossed everybody on Kevin Durant's favorite team. Everybody's arguing Defensive Player of the Year. Imagine Madden says Stephon Gilmore. Trevor says Daniel Hunter. I'm sure there's some TJ Watson here as well. There's probably a lot of different people voting for a lot of different things. I did say Juju is overrated. I'll get to that as well. I actually don't know if I'm going to the Niners and Seahawks because they did switch the time, so it depends on the other people that are going on the trip, whether or not they want to sell the tickets or not. Because when we initially bought the tickets, they were like way less than they are now. So we would like make a pretty good coin if we did sell them. But it's more about the travel because I don't work on Monday, besides doing this, but everybody else does. So considering that we're from Vancouver and we have to drive like 3 hours to Seattle, it might be a little rough. But we're still deciding whether we're going to go or not. I think it's up to everybody else if I'm going. I would have loved to go, but if I can't go, then I'll just probably end up making a video on here and streaming live. So either way, I'm happy. Somebody said pretenders. All right. Imagine Madden says Texans, pretenders or contenders? I think it's pretenders. Trevor says, has anyone seen the Liv Cowherd stuff on Twitter? That is hilarious, Trevor. Everybody should follow Liv Cowherd because it's absolutely hilarious. Who's the best wide receiver in this class? That's a tough question. I think it might be A.J. Brown. I like a lot of them so far. I mean, I think I like Marquise Brown. I like Harry, but we haven't seen a lot of him. I like Metcalf a lot. I like, who else? I'm missing one of them. Deebo Samuel. I like a lot of them, but I think A.J. Brown is probably, Terry McLaurin too. I forgot about him. That's a difficult question. I think it's between Scary Terry and A.J. Brown for the best, but I think we'll see. All right, let's go back to these games, and then I'll answer some more comments a little bit later. So the Sunday night game, or Saturday night game, I should say. It was awesome having Saturday night football, by the way. I did not get to watch this game. I was at the Canucks game, so I wasn't able to watch it, but I heard it was amazing. I did see some of the highlights and stuff, and it looked like Jimmy Garoppolo was pretty clutch in this game, as well as Emmanuel Sanders. I think this is about two things. I think this shows that the 49ers are a very clutch team. It shows that they can play. I mean, they did this versus the Saints. They did this versus the Rams. I think Jimmy, I said this, before they even got him, but I believe that Jimmy has that quality to him where he's going to step up in the big moments and he's going to make plays. And he showed that versus the Rams. I think he's capable of taking this team to the Super Bowl and potentially winning the Super Bowl. I think the 49ers at full health, which they weren't in this game, might be the best team in the NFC. And I would probably say they are. I think it's between them and the Saints, and it's close there. But given that the 49ers went into New Orleans and they beat them, and yes, the 49ers defense has shown a little bit of flaws recently. They are banged up. They are hurt. Getting that bye week may help them, and playing at home throughout the playoffs will help them if they're able to beat Seattle next week, which is a huge game. But in this game, I think they just showed that they're able to win these close games. They come together, and they make the big plays when they need to. This was a team that they were playing in the Rams that they were fighting for their life. And speaking on the Rams, They're in a tough division going forward. I mean, these last 3 years, they needed to maximize their opportunity to win the Super Bowl. And yes, they went to a Super Bowl, but they didn't win it. Going forward, it's going to be difficult for this team to have success in this division, considering that the 49ers, with what they're building there, they're a very young roster. Jimmy is, I would say, better than Goff at this point. And I think that Shanahan's a great coach. I think they have a great foundation on defense. Nick Bosa being the star, Buckner, one of them as well. And looking at Kyler Murray for the Cardinals, I think, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback at some point in his career. Russell Wilson is arguably the best quarterback in the league, and they're going to be good because of him alone. So that NFC West is going to be very difficult to come out of for the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be an absolute joy to watch. But if you're a fan of any of these teams, it's going to be painful because you could know that you could have a really good team, but you're going 8-8 or 7-9 because the rest of the division is so good. So it's going to be difficult to come out of that division. I think one of these years we could see 3 teams going to the playoffs. I think we could see 2 definitely, like we see this year. And I think the NFC West going forward is going to be the best division in football for many years to come. I still believe in McVay. I still believe in the players on defense. I mean, having Donald and Ramsey, you can't get much better in 2 players on defense in the league. But it's just going to be tough because they have a lot of older players. They're the oldest team in the division. And they're the most cap-strapped team in the division. And I honestly think I don't think Jared Goff particularly played bad in this game from what I saw. He threw the pick 6, but, 27 for 46, 323, 2 touchdowns. It was a shootout. It wasn't a defensive game. I think if they moved on from Jared Goff and they didn't pay him, I think they would honestly be in a better position because then they could revamp the rest of their roster easier. But because they paid Goff, they paid Gurley as well, which might be the biggest one of them all, who didn't have a good game here. 15 carries for 48 yards. He scored some touchdowns, but I think the Rams are in a tough spot because of the way their cap is built and the way their roster is built, and they're all on superstars and not enough depth. And it's almost the exact opposite of the way, the Patriots, who've been the most successful team for 20 years, they build the best 53. They don't build the best 22. So it's an interesting strategy. We'll see how it works out for the Rams, but I think they're in a tough spot. I heard this game was great. Let me know what you guys thought of this game. And again, for the 49ers, they have a good chance going to the playoffs. They have the playmakers on offense. They have the coach to do so, to game plan and get them points. And their defense and their pass rush and playing at home will certainly help. So look out for the 49ers. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I've been on them all year, all off season. All right. Next, let's get to Sunday. So the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens. Odell Beckham Jr. had a little sideline fight with his coach, Freddie Kitchens. And no wonder. I mean, you have arguably the worst coach in all of football with one of the most talented athletes in the sport. And Odell is frustrated. Odell's playing injured. You got to credit him for that. Odell is playing on a team that's unlikely to make the playoffs while being injured, and Odell has not really said anything to the media or anything like that, which, people say he's been known for the course of his career for being a diva and for being a cancer, whatever you want to call him. He hasn't really done any of that all year for the Browns. He just wants to see this team win, as does Baker Mayfield, as does Jarvis Landry. Now, there have been the stories coming out about how Landry and Beckham are telling other teams, come get him. Well, if I was playing for Freddie Kitchens and I was playing for this franchise that is in such shambles, the roster doesn't want to play for this coach, I would want to get traded too. And if I was going to get traded from the Browns to a team like the Patriots or the Eagles or the Packers, I'd love to do that. I don't know about you guys, but honestly, I think like the Browns, they should have been a team that were a playoff team this year. They had the talent to do so, and I think a lot of it is similar to the Cowboys, as we'll get to. The coaching is not on par with the talent. And just because you have great coaching, or just because you have great talent, doesn't mean you have great coaching. Just because you have great coaching doesn't mean you have great talent. And the coaching needs to meet the talent at the same time. So, and when you're intellectually, we saw this with Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy. They went their separate ways as well because, Rodgers and McCarthy didn't get along at the end because Rodgers believed he knew more about offensive football than McCarthy did. And he believed that he had a better vision for what the offense could be. And now with Matt LaFleur, you see this team as a playoff team in Green Bay. With the Cleveland Browns, Freddie Kitchens does some things well. I will say that. He's an offensive line guy at heart, and I think they have a great running game. But outside of that, they don't do anything particularly well on either side of the ball. And this team just takes way too many penalties. They turn the ball over. They're not prepared in big situations. He just seems like he's out of his element. He doesn't seem like he's at the level of a head coach. And I think he got this job way too fast in his career. Remember what he was before he was the head coach. He very quickly got the job. I think part of that is to blame on the ownership and the general manager of the Browns, but also Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield was pushing Freddie Kitchens. I'm sure of it. He had a really good relationship with Freddie Kitchens. The ownership saw how he got along with Freddie Kitchens, and that's often a mistake. We've seen that with teams like the Giants, hiring Eli's offensive coordinators, or the Bucs hiring offensive coordinators that not necessarily because of Jameis Winston shouldn't be the head coach. We've seen this many times when the owner is trying to please the quarterback by getting the guy that they like, but not necessarily the right guy for the team. And when you have all these big personalities with a coach that is just not fit for the role and is not a leader of men, which Freddie Kitchens doesn't seem like he is. I don't know the inside scoop, but he doesn't seem like he is from my perspective. I just think a team is not going to fight for that guy. A team's not going to respect that guy, and therefore you're not going to get the product on the field. No matter if you had 11 Odells or 11 Deion Sanders on defense, it's not going to happen for you either way, right? So I think at the very least, you need to respect your coach to have a good team. You don't need to always agree with what he says or what he wants to do, but you need to respect him, and I don't think there's any respect for the Browns roster with Freddie Kitchens as a coach. And that showed again versus Baltimore. They were in the game. They were competitive in the game. They were fighting for a lot of the game. Then they gave up. They gave up again. And Odell scored a touchdown. Good for him, I guess. The Ravens, again, had a good game. Lamar had a great game. Set myself up for fantasy championships. Thank you, Lamar Jackson. Mark Ingram did get a calf strain, so that's interesting going into next week. And then the playoffs, I'm sure he'll sit week 17. But in the playoffs, he'll get another bye. I think he would be back for that divisional round, but we'll have to see how serious that injury is. I don't think it's super serious. I will say, though, if you can run on Baltimore, you have a chance, because if you could keep Lamar Jackson on the sidelines, build a lead versus Baltimore by running the football, and keep their secondary off balance by running the ball and then working off play action or working through the screen game or hitting some shots down the field, you have a chance versus Baltimore. I think that's going to be the strategy going into the playoffs for a lot of these teams. The only team that I think really can differ from that strategy is Kansas City, because they can just pass the ball at will versus basically everybody. Baltimore matches up pretty well in the secondary versus them, but they don't really have a guy to cover Tyreek. It's going to be difficult, But I do think that Mahomes has shown that he has the number, and Andy Reid has the number of this defense and of Wink Martindale. And I think the Chiefs could pass the ball versus them. But when you're talking about New England, Buffalo, even if it's Pittsburgh or Tennessee or whoever it is, Houston, I think you need to at least have a balanced attack, if not relying more on the run game to get you going, because the Baltimore Ravens have shown that their run defense is not the best. And they can be taken advantage of there. So we'll see what happens going forward. The Baltimore Ravens do secure the first seed in the AFC, and they do not have to play anyone if they please next week versus Pittsburgh. So next, we have a shout out to the man Saquon, who won me a fantasy championship today. Thank you, Saquon Barkley. Clap for Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had a franchise record today, 279 yards from scrimmage versus the Washington Redskins for the New York Giants. New franchise record for Saquon. He'll probably break that at some point during his career. Danny Dimes played awesome. This was a shootout, which I didn't really see coming, really. I mean, I thought the Giants would win. I didn't really see it going back and forth. I thought when Haskins was in there, from what I saw, he played well. Keenum came in there, and he played well as well. This was an entertaining game if you did catch any of it. McLaurin had a good game. He did get injured in this game as well. Golden Tate had 6 catches, 96 yards. I'm sure if you had him in fantasy, you were happy about that. Nothing really to say about this game overall. I think it's just about these two teams' future. We'll have to see how serious the injury is for Haskins. They have not a lot of pieces, I will say. I think they have a good front seven that I think is relatively young, that they can build on there on defense. I think they have a quarterback that at least is a building piece. I don't know how good Haskins is, but I think he can be decent. McLaurin could be a number 1 receiver in this league, as he showed this year. I don't know what's going on with Darius Geis. I don't think you can count on him going forward being a back that you rely on. And we'll see if Adrian Peterson comes back next year. Good for him, playing another season in the NFL. But these are two teams that are not making the playoffs. Just wanted to touch on the great accomplishment from Saquon and Danny Dimes throwing 5 touchdowns. I think if the Giants are to fire their coach, they're much more likely to find a coach over Washington. Washington's going to have a tough time finding a good coach in the sweepstakes, because they're not a team that has a lot of great pieces to build on. Some average pieces, but not really ones you get excited about. I think the Giants have many more of those on both sides of the ball. So, moving on, New Orleans, Tennessee. This was a game I was a little worried about when it came to the Saints. I was worried that they would maybe lose this game, maybe get upset. I was worried about Breeze going on the road in an outside game where he's only played one of those in the last 17 or 18 games. But the Saints came out and they won 38-28. I think the concerning part was their defense in this game, to be honest with you. It took 38 points, really, for the Saints to secure and win this game. It took a 21-point third quarter to win this game. It took a team that was playing no Derrick Henry, no Adoree Jackson, a lot of injuries on the side of Tennessee. And their defense did not show up today. I don't really know what it was in particular, but Ryan Tannehill's playing well. 17 for 27, 272, 3 touchdowns, 133.6, played another good game and kept them in the game for a majority of it. I think really the Titans just didn't have anyone to cover Michael Thomas. I think that's the honest truth. They didn't have anybody to cover Michael Thomas. Adoree Jackson wasn't there. Malcolm Butler's out. You don't have anybody to cover him. Drew Brees played a good game, though. 27 for 38, efficient, 279, 3 touchdowns, 118 rating. Again, Sean Payton with another masterpiece versus 2 good defensive coaches in Vrabel and Pease. Kamara had a better game on the ground with a 7.3 average on the ground, 11 carries, 80 yards. Cook had 2 huge touchdowns in this game. Their defense, though, I'm a little concerned about that secondary. It's shown moments of weakness. They're good versus the run. Dion Lewis had a little of success, but nothing too great. I think the Saints, though, they need to hope that they get the number 1 seed. It will be much more difficult if they're having to go to San Francisco in the NFC Championship to win or go to Seattle. I believe I think it's only San Francisco they can go. I don't think Seattle can get the number 1 seed. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that only the Saints and the Niners can get the number 1. And Saints fans are becoming huge Seahawks fans next week, from what I understand. But I do think that the Saints would be way better off at home than on the road because you never know. But like I've said in the past, they have the offensive line and the defensive line to win games on the road, to at least be competitive in games on the road. But that Superdome is such a big advantage over every other. I mean, it's really like the Superdome, Gillette, and Lambeau and Minnesota. Those places are like such a big home field advantage over everything else. It's pretty impressive. But looking at the one thing that surprised me in this game was that the Saints weren't able to create more pressure in this game. They had 4 sacks. But Tannehill still had a little bit of time. He was able to buy time, make plays on the move. I thought the Saints' defensive line would dominate a little bit more than they did. But again, I'm kind of nitpicking with the Saints because I see them as a Super Bowl contender. So don't take this as me hating on the Saints. It's more me nitpicking teams that I think are good and have a chance for the Super Bowl, and me just pointing out some of the things that I think are flaws on their team. But they're good, man, and their passing game continues to be impressive. And Michael Thomas continues to get open, and Sean Payton continues to put him in creative positions. Speaking about creative positions, I mean, Taysom Hill, this guy I think could be a starter in the league. That's going to be fascinating to see if Drew Brees ends up retiring at any point this year, maybe next year, if Taysom Hill is that guy next in line. I think he could be for Sean Payton. I think that's always been the plan, but we'll have to see. I think he could be a starter, especially the way that you see that Lamar Jackson is operating in Baltimore. That's something that you could build off of there. So, there you go. New Orleans, Tennessee. Titans play the Texans next week. Win, get in. Lose, have to rely on the Steelers losing. So, Titans, win, you're in. I think they could do it. It's going to be close. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But I think they can do it. We'll have to see. Last week, I thought they would win. They didn't. We'll see if they show up. Jets, Baltimore Ravens. Le'Veon Bell revenge game, baby. 16-10, Jets over the Steelers. Jets win it. Because of course, right? Because of course. I don't know what to say. Let me just read these stats off. Devlin Hodges, 17 for 11, 84 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked 3 times, 37 passer rating. Mason Rudolph, 14 for 20, 129, a touchdown, sacked once, 104 passer rating. Is Mason Rudolph the new starter next week after Devlin Hodges poops his pants 2 weeks in a row? This was a must-win game for Pittsburgh. Now they're on the outside looking in at the playoffs. Now they're not controlling their own destiny. This was a game that they had to win. And again, when you have a great defense, but you don't have an offense, you can only do so much, right? And it's not like their running game is super effective. It really isn't. I mean, and they played the Jets, and we knew that the Jets' defense was really good versus the run, which I said would be difficult for them. And I'm honestly not shocked they lost that game at all. I'm not really shocked at all. Bodo called it. I'll give him credit, but not shocked. I will say Deontay Johnson turning into a stud. I think that's the guy. Honestly, I said this on Twitter. Juju Smith-Schuster, most overrated player in the NFL. My reasoning behind that, Antonio Brown made him really good. What's Juju been without Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown was taking the double teams. Antonio Brown was taking the safety over the top. And I will also prove it by saying this, right? Patriots last year. Bill Belichick shows you how good your players are. Double team, Gilmore on Brown. Double team over the top with Gilmore on him. And they sing no safeties. Island. No safety over top. J.C. Jackson versus Juju. Island. Nobody else on that side of the field. They said, at this time in the season 2, last year, J.C. Jackson was not like the name he is now, sort of, for certain people that know how good he is. Last year, he was undrafted rookie. All right? And this was like his first start. J.C. Jackson on Island versus Juju. Gilmore and a safety on Antonio Brown. So for those of you that said Juju's better than AB, just because AB's a wingnut doesn't mean that he was not a great receiver, and I think he's a top 10 receiver of all time. Just because he's crazy doesn't mean he's not great, and doesn't mean he didn't make other players great. He made Bell better. He made Ben better. He made Juju better. That's very difficult for one receiver to do. Not many receivers can say they do that for the rest of their team. So I will say Juju, and then when he's shown as the number one receiver, I don't think he's number one guy. He's not great on the outside. He doesn't have blazing speed, so he can't really separate, which means teams don't need to double team him over the top. You play inside, you play outside. Maybe you put a robber over the middle of the field so that you could take away the inside routes. He's a physical guy. I will give him credit. He's a good receiver, but he's not a great receiver. I like Deontay Johnson. This guy's quick. This guy has speed. This guy can burn you. This guy has really good route running. He reminds me a little bit of Antonio Brown. I'm not saying he's going to end up being that, but he has a similar skill set, and I think he is actually going to be their number one receiver. And as Mike said on the stream last week, he said the same thing, and I totally agree. I think that's the guy for the Steelers going forward. For whoever the next quarterback is, that's going to be their number one. Juju's going to be the number 2. I think Juju's extremely overrated. I think he's a very fun guy, but not the receiver maybe some people thought he was. All right, Seahawks, Arizona. And as I stated already, Pittsburgh, they need to hope Tennessee loses and they need to win their game. Hawks, Arizona. I'm just going to finish all my rants about these games, and then I'll get to the comments and just go through the comments, and we'll hang out for a while, and I'll just answer all your questions. I think that's a better way of going about it. So, Seahawks, Arizona. I did not really watch any of this game, to be honest with you. So, if Seahawks are the best bad team I've ever seen in my life, they have won a number of games by under 6 points, where it's just not going to happen every time you play. When you continue to start slow, you're not going to be able to come back in every single football game you play, especially when you're playing Chandler friggin' Jones, who's going to take your quarterback's head off on a consistent basis. The Cardinals, this was upset alert this week. I think I said it in my picks. The 9 points, I said it. I wish I could show you the video. I swear. Go back and watch my picks video. I said 9 points was an absolute joke. Plus 9 for the Cardinals was a joke. Totally inflated. The Seahawks, I think, are good. A good team. I think they're a good team, solid team. But they're nothing special. People saying they're top 3 in the league. People saying they're contender for the Super Bowl. I don't see it. Russell Wilson is incredible. He's an amazing quarterback. He's an amazing player. Pete Carroll's a great coach. Outside of that, the Seahawks are not a very good team. They don't do anything outside of Russell Wilson at an elite level. Running the ball has been solid. Good even, right? A little inconsistent at times. Sometimes it's very good. Sometimes it's kind of lackluster. Offensive line, we know, is not the greatest, although it's not bad. It's not as bad as people say. It's just average. Their defense, their secondary can't cover anyone. They play so much zone coverage. You know it's coming. They play the same defenses all the time. They can't play man because they can't trust their corners to cover in man coverage. And their pass rush, when Jadeveon Clowney isn't destroying, is not great. So, I mean, they don't do anything particularly well. The run defense is average. I mean, nothing great. They're situationally really good because they're really well coached. They have Russell Wilson, who's an incredible playmaker. Tyler Lockett's a good player. They have good players. I'm not trying to say they don't have good players, but they're not a Super Bowl contender. There's a difference between being a good team and making the playoffs and being a team that can win the whole thing. And the Seahawks versus a great team, it reminds me a little bit of the Packers with Aaron Rodgers in 2016, carrying the team. He had some good players, but it was mostly Aaron Rodgers. And we knew when he would play a great team, eventually he would lose. So I think that's what's going to happen with Russell Wilson. And as I have continued to say about the Seahawks, they just can't keep this up. They have the most wins from 6 or under points in the entire league. They're not going to win every game by one score. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. It's just not, it can't happen. And then if you're starting slow, you're going to lose. Good teams that get up on you in games are going to finish you. You're not going to have a chance to come back. No matter if you're Russell Wilson, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or God himself, you're not going to come back consistently every single game. It's not going to happen. So, just looking at these stats, Russell Wilson had another lackluster game. He has not recently he's not been playing particularly well on the stat sheet. 16 for 31, 169, a touchdown. No picks, but, I mean, under 200 yards and a touchdown. 5 sacks, 78.6 rating. Running the ball, Carson got hurt. Because Procise, Carson out for the year. They have no running backs now. That sucks, honestly, because that's a huge blow. Carson's a really good player in particular. Dwayne Brown's also banged up on the offensive line. We know Bobby Wagner's banged up. Receiving-wise, Jacob Hollister, 5 for 64, who I said was a start this week. Hopefully you put him in if you needed to. Tyler Lockett again, 1 for 12 yards. 1 for 12 yards. That's awful, in my opinion. Terrible. Number 1 receiver, 1 for 12. It does look like they missed Josh Gordon in this game, and I didn't think I would say that, to be honest with you. Bobby Wagner found a way to play. He had a sack and 7 tackles, of course. He's a stud. Again, I'm not trying to say players on the Seahawks are not good. I'm just saying they're not at the level that some people think they are. Kenyon Drake, 24 for 166 yards. Kyler Murray didn't even do a lot. I mean, 11 for 18, 118 yards, a touchdown. He did have 40 yards rushing. He's going to be a good player, but this passing offense still needs a lot of work. Fitz had 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown. I don't know what to tell you, man. I've been saying this all year, and I just think eventually it's going to catch up with the Seahawks. I will say, going forward, I think with the Seahawks, if they want to have the most success going into the playoffs, they need to trust Russell Wilson and just put the ball in his hands. They need to go 5 wide. They need to go, we're going to pass the ball a lot. And I don't think they're willing to do that, but I think they need to. I think they need to just say, our defense isn't really going to stop anyone. We need to rely on turnovers. Maybe we need to get a little bit more aggressive defensively. But I think they need to shift a little bit more into a shootout type of team and just let Russell Wilson play ball. I mean, let him go 5 wide, 4 wide, get in the shotgun, scramble around, make plays. Because I think that's the only way you're going to win some of these games versus good team. Like versus the Niners, if it's in San Francisco, that's going to be tough. If they have to play the Saints, we already saw that game earlier this year. If they have to play even a Green Bay or a Minnesota again, I know that they've beat some of these teams, but I just think that other teams are so much more talented than they are. It's going to be tough. I think, especially without Chris Carson. I mean, without that back to run the ball with consistency like the way they want to do, I think you just need to put the ball in your best player's hands, and you need to try and win. I think they need to do that. So let's get to the main event. It's my boy, the Clapper. Let's have a hand for the Clapper. A hand for the clapper. Good work, Jason Garrett. You are officially the worst coach in football, and you officially deserve to get absolutely, positively fired. This guy sucks. I can't tell you. I was like, everything that I thought could go wrong in this game went wrong, and it was so disappointing. Even though I'm not a Cowboys fan, it was so disappointing and frustrating to watch. I've never been more frustrated. And I was going to my appointment during the game, right? So I had to go for my eye, and just hearing on the radio, listening to the game on the radio, or looking at the score on my phone, and then getting back for the second half and watching it. So many coaching mistakes, so many little things that the Cowboys do wrong. And it's tough for the players because I think a lot of them are sitting there like, what is this guy? Like, they don't want to play for him, in a similar situation to Freddie Kitchens. I think Amari Cooper's taking himself out of the game. He's shaking his head. He's not wanting to play. And I think he's a little hurt too, trying to play through the injury. I think Amari Cooper, side point, a little soft. I think in a moment where you need to win that game and you're the number one receiver, they trade a first-round pick for you, you're the go-to guy on the offense at this point. You need to play through the injury. I mean, we just saw Edelman play through like 3 injuries in one game, and you're not going to play through whatever you're going through. Obviously, you're good enough to play at some points in the game. Why are you coming off and going back on? Maybe that's a coaching decision. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong to say this, and maybe they're taking him in and out on purpose. So maybe I shouldn't be blaming Amari Cooper. But at the same time, I think you just need to find a way to get on the field. Michael Gallup dropped a lot of passes in this game that he should have had. I think Dak had some moments where he was good and he was bad. He had moments where he put the ball right on the money and they would just drop it. And he had other moments where he was missing receivers wide open for touchdowns. He is hurt. We know this. But again, you're playing for going to the playoffs. A lot of players at this time of the year are playing hurt. I don't think that's really an excuse at this point. In games like this, everybody's playing hurt. Everybody's playing with something. And I think you just need to play through it. I don't like some of the play calls they had. In particular, 3rd and 1, passing the ball. Again, guys, I hate that play. How many times does that play actually work? The play I'm talking about is the old West Coast offense. Shift the line to the right. Our quarterbacks are righty. We're going to run to the right. Okay, we got the out route to the outside receiver. We have the slant coming across. We have the corner in the slot. How many times does that actually work? They run it on 3rd and 1. Doesn't work. Incomplete. Eagles are all over it because, everybody knows that play by now because Joe Montana ran it in 1984. Everybody knows the play, okay? Can we stop running this stupid play? Second, they don't run the ball with Zeke on 3rd and 1. There are moments in this game where there's no Fletcher Cox or Timmy Jernigan, and it's 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, 2nd and 2, and you're passing the ball? You have Ezekiel Elliott, who you gave all this money to, and you're passing the ball. Are you kidding me? So, I'm not even a Cowboys fan, and just sitting here and watching these coaching decisions, play calling by Kellen Moore, very poor. Defensively, too. I know the defense didn't give up a lot of points, but literally, can we get out of zone coverage? I mean, what do we have here? Look at this depth chart. I mean, okay, Zach Ertz, very good tight end. He's not going to run past you, okay? He's going to go inside or he's going to go outside. He's going to run a million option routes, okay? Even if we have to, let's double team him every play. Take him out of the game, all right? Dallas Goedert, proving to be a very talented player. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's going to make 1 or 2 plays where it's actually down the field. He had a really nice play, back shoulder catch, great throw by Wentz. Wentz was amazing in this game. From what I saw. But look at this, guys. Greg Ward. Who? 4 catches, 71 yards. Robert Davis. Who? Boston Scott. Who? I know who he is, but I'm just saying. Arcega Whiteside. Who? Like, why are we playing the same zone defense we've been playing all year? You know Doug Peterson's going to come out with 74 plays to beat your cover 3 defense, your cover 2 defense, your cover 4 quarters defense. You know he's going to come out and do that. Like, just play man. If they beat you, they're just better. Like, let their 5th and 6th corner receivers beat your number 1 Byron Jones. You want Byron Jones to just drop back into a zone instead of just taking Greg Ward out of the play? Like, I don't understand this coaching. It's the most dumb thing I've ever seen. They eventually adjusted down the stretch. They played better. But early in the game, like, you know Doug Peterson's going to throw dump passes to Miles Sanders. You know they're going to run the ball out of shotgun specifically. You know they're going to try and target Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert down the seam. It's just like stupid coaching. Like it's 99% coaching for the Cowboys. Any other decent coach in the league, the Cowboys are at least 11-5. They're especially in a division like this. Like, there's absolutely no reason the Cowboys should not be 11-5, 12-4. There's absolutely no reason the Cowboys should not be fighting for a bye. They have so much talent. As I said in that video last week, I mean, their stats make no sense. It doesn't lead up to anything. They have the same punter all year long. I'm not really saying he played bad this game, but I mean, 32nd in field position. Are you going to change your punter at some point? 32nd? This is a weakness on your football team. Are you going to make a change there? Cut your punter, maybe sign a different one? I mean, I know Ryan Allen, I think he's on Atlanta now. He was just in the Super Bowl for the Patriots punting. He wasn't signed till halfway through the season, and you're sitting there with 32nd in field position. I mean, I'm sure there's more than just Allen out there that you could have signed that's better than, I think it's Colin Jones who's their punter. I could be wrong, but I think that's his name. Honestly, their best player was their kicker who they signed like 2 weeks ago. It's just, and Dak not making the necessary plays when he needed to. I think I don't want to blame the roster. I really don't want to blame the roster because I think that they're not really at fault. I think it's mostly coaching. I think it's 100% coaching. It's really disappointing, even from a person that's not a Cowboys fan at all. Like, I root for the Cowboys sometimes because my dad's a Cowboys fan, but other than that, like, it's just disgusting. It was honestly disgusting. Like, the talent difference is ridiculous. I could go down every player on the list and say the Cowboys probably have, out of 53 people, they probably have 42 people that are better than the other 11 people on the, like, congratulations to Eagles fans. Shout out to AC with the big win. But it's gross. Miles Sanders had a big game. I will credit him. He is turning out to be a good player. As I said in the pre-draft process, he was my favorite running back? He was one of my favorite running backs in the draft. And he's looking really good. And he's going to have to be a hero if they're going to make the playoffs. And I don't know 100% that the Eagles are going to beat the Giants next week. I don't know. Credit the Eagles' heart. Credit the Eagles fans for showing up and being loud. Credit guys like Malcolm Jenkins, Fletcher Cox, Nigel Bradham, Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, Derek Barnett. These guys on defense played a very good game given what they were out there. You know, I still think like a guy like Robert Quinn played a good game on Dallas, but it's so bad. So bad. And that's the exact point I made that video about. You know, I said the NFC should be scared of the Cowboys, I think was the title of the video. And it's because if they actually put it together, they're a team that would challenge everyone and they wouldn't be outmatched by anyone. But at the same time, because of their inept coaching, they can lose to anyone. I mean, they lost to the Jets this year. They lost to a lot of bad teams this year, and it's just disappointing. I think if you're a Cowboys fan, I would be disgusted. I'm ready to move on. So let's move on. It's just, I don't know what else to say. Let me know what you guys think about the Cowboys. But good luck to the Eagles. They need to win next week. I think they will. But again, you got to stop Saquon. All right, let's get to the comment section. Rex says, got to do family stuff, off to bed, so won't be here. If he gets to the comments, good stream though, been fun. Thank you, Rex. Watch after if you want. Hopefully you're watching this now, because you would be watching it, assuming you are doing family stuff right now. Kevin Urquhart says the Steelers messed their season up. Honestly, I think they still overdid expectations, considering they don't have Ben Roethlisberger, who's a Hall of Famer in basically everyone's book except for Kevin. Kevin Urquhart says the Titans are not winning if Watson plays. Atlanta fan says Eli is an anomaly in the NFL. Imagine Man said Eli only beats good teams. Trevor says Titans lost week 15 because of that freaky drop touchdown. Robot Guy says, how in the heck do you lose to the dang Jets? I don't know. As a Patriots fan, I can't relate, to be honest with you. But I think the AFC East has been a lot better than a lot of people want to give it credit for and a lot of people predicted. You know, I thought the Bills were going to be good. I also thought the Jets would be decent. How many wins do the Jets have? They have 6 wins. And they were missing Darnold. They had a CFL quarterback playing for at least 4 weeks. Let me look at their record. They're 6-9. So, do they play the Dolphins next week? Who do they play? They might be 7-9, which I think would be... I think that's what I predicted for them going into the season. But considering Darnold didn't play like 4 games, and I'm not saying Darnold is like a huge game changer, but he's a lot better than what they had. So honestly, I think that's not a bad season for the Jets with a big win over the Steelers. Duck Hodges is definitely a bum. Atlanta fan says pretty much everything went wrong for the Titans the first game versus Houston and only lost by 1 score. We'll have to see in the second game. Houston had some things go wrong for them as well, like interceptions on the 1-yard line. Trevor says that TJ Watt hasn't even been the best edge player. He says Daniel Hunter has been better. I would disagree. I think TJ Watt's been the best edge player. But Daniel Hunter's up there. What else we have? Who's the best player on the Bills? Tre'Davious White, probably. Maybe Micah Hyde. It's between those two, I think. Trivia says Chandler Jones is better than TJ Watt. Trivia versus Kevin Durant pay-per-view on January 10th, folks. Wait, what's happening? Kyler Murray is going to be the next Lamar. Mark my words, says Imagine Madden. Trivia has a Chandler Jones greater than Hunter greater than Watt. Trivia says Gilmore probably has more interceptions than catches allowed. I don't know about catches allowed, but definitely touchdowns. He has 5 more interceptions than touchdowns allowed. Imagine Madden says he only has 1 touchdown given up, and it wasn't really his fault. He thought the safety would cover him. Paulie says, how about my man Danny Dimes? Played well today. Looking good for the future. Giants have a little bit, they have some nice pieces. I don't think they still are the right team that should have signed Golden Tate. Even though he played well this year for them, I don't think that was a good signing for them long term, but they have some nice pieces there. And they have their quarterback, they have their running back. They need to build their defense a ton, though, especially in the secondary. Trivia says, other than Manning's 2013, who's your best quarterback season of this decade? Probably it's between Lamar this year and Mahomes, I think. That's tough, though. I think you could throw in Cam in 2015. You could throw in Brady in 2016. You could throw in Brady again, like 3 other times. You could throw in Rodgers 2011. Definitely really underrated season. I think maybe, Rodgers 2016, who I thought should have been the MVP based on his entire season's work over Matt Ryan in that year. Who else? Those would probably be the ones that come to mind. 2014 was Rodgers again. I don't really think that would be in the conversation. Yeah, I think those are the main ones. Trevor says, exactly, Mitch. Winning close games at the rate Seattle has been is unsustainable. People think that winning close games is good experience, but there comes a point where you're doing it too much. I agree with that. Yeah, some close games are awesome building blocks, but when you're winning every game, not only is it not going to happen every single time, but it's also kind of like it wears on a team because they're having to fight for every single inch, every single game. And it means you can't put teams away, as Trevor says. Turtle says, best season of the decade, Cam Newton or Matt Ryan? Cam's definitely better season than Matt, in my opinion. Just so dominant. Like, that was something else that year. It was a lot like Lamar this year. It was like just a train that couldn't be stopped. Trevor said Rodgers threw a touchdown on almost 10% of his throws in 2011. That's nuts. That's pretty nuts. Brady 2010 was also really, really good. First year of the decade. Won the MVP. Who do you guys think, there's some dynasty talk here. Who do you guys think would be the next dynasty if there is going to be a dynasty? So Atlanta fan said he doesn't think there's going to be another dynasty outside of New England. Is Jason Garrett the worst coach of all time? That's definitely not him. That's definitely Hugh Jackson. No debate. I think Jason Garrett has just lost his team. And I don't think he's ever been particularly good. He's been average. He's had really good teams, and he's made them worse than they are. I think more so than he's made them better. The only real year I will say where he was really good was the first year of Dak and Zeke, which was 2016. That team was very talented too. I think with Romo, that team could have went to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Because I think with Romo, with a healthy Romo, it wouldn't have mattered who the coach was. Because Romo could have coached himself, essentially, which he was with Dak. Which that's partly why Dak had a great season that year. That was Dak's best year other than this year, in my opinion. Imagine Madden says, who can name every Super Bowl winner throughout the 2010s decade? I'm sure a lot of people can do that. I would hope. If you're a big NFL fan, I would hope you could do that. Kevin Durant wants Dilly and AC up in here. We'll have to see. How old is Megatron? I have no idea. Imagine Madden says Sony Michel underrated or overrated. Where is he rated? That's the question. I think Sony Michel, I don't know if I can really answer underrated or overrated. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a game-changing player. I think he's a replaceable running back, but I do think he's definitely a solid runner. And with an offensive line that can actually block, he can be nice for you. And I think he's going to get better. I think we see him getting better. Over the last couple of weeks, he's been good. If he has another amazing playoff run like he did last year, I think people are going to be talking about him really high up, maybe too high. But he's a solid running back. I don't think he's anything more than that right now, but he could be more than that. So like Sony, I think he's well rated. I think he's like around 15th, 16th best running back in the league. Somewhere around there, I would say. What else we have here? Mitch, will you do a little bit of XFL content just for fun? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. Chauncey is in the chat. I haven't seen that name in speaking of decades, like a decade. Holy. Kevin or Cam, when do you want to play? Rodgers was bad for half the year because the Packers were bad, but then his run was insane in that season. I had him in fantasy that year, and he was just tearing it up. And his playoff games versus Giants and the Cowboys, I mean, spectacular. 2007 was Brady's best year, probably. I will say a season that gets overlooked for Brady, though, is 2006, where he was, around that time, he was, at his physical peak, but he had, no receivers that year. He had, Reshae Caldwell and, Jabbar Gaffney, and he was just balling with those guys and, making plays. His arm was at its peak in, 07, 06. Hasn't really dropped off a ton, but, he had, you look at those, specifically if you look back at, Randy Moss highlights with Tom Brady, you'll see how strong his arm was. It was special arm. That was when he was, 30, though. Fitz was fast when he was, was he fast? I mean, he was fast, I guess, but not, really fast. He was, who could I compare him to today? I want to say he was maybe a little faster than DeAndre Hopkins, not super fast, but he was fast enough to get away from you in the open field. Atlanta fan says final 6 games shouldn't equal an MVP though, Mitch. Matt was overall the most consistent player. Well, I think also the only reason Matt won it was because Brady was suspended for 4 weeks. I'll just say that much. Because he had 28 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But that's just my opinion. But I do believe Rodgers had more touchdowns than him. He had 40 touchdowns and 6 picks or something like that. And he carried his team. I will say Matt had a great season. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying what Brady and Rodgers did that season was also amazing. And I think if you look at it from, even though Ryan played well in the playoffs, I think if you look at Brady's season in 2016, it collectively was a better season considering the Super Bowl comeback and the Super Bowl MVP performance. It was probably a better season overall, taking in full account of the entire season than Matt Ryan. But again, not taking anything away from Matt Ryan, Atlanta fans. All right, I think I'm done here. It's been a fun talk, though. I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction, recap, analysis on Week 16 games and other things. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View, and I'm going to be making some videos tomorrow. So hopefully I'll get some videos out tomorrow, and I will be live streaming the Vikings versus the Packers on Monday Night Football. So hope to see you there live Monday night. Vikings, Packers, NFC North showdown. Peace out.